Gentlewoman from Delaware rise.
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. DeGette of Colorado and Ms. Beatty of Ohio, I inform the House that Ms. DeGette and Ms. Beatty will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
What purposes, gentlewoman from Colorado rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Paul Gosar of Arizona, I inform the House that Mr. Gosar will vote nay on H.R. 5665.
What purposes, gentleman from Illinois rise?
As the member designated by Ms. Underwood, I inform the House that Ms. Underwood will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentlewoman from Texas rise?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Miller from the state of West Virginia, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Ms. Miller will vote no on H.R. 5665. And as the member designated by Mr. Jackson from the great state of Texas, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Jackson will vote no on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes the gentleman from Louisiana rise?
Madam Speaker, as member designated by Mr. Horsford of Nevada, I inform the House that Mr. Horsford will vote yea on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes, gentleman from Michigan rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Hagedorn of Minnesota, I inform the House that Mr. Hagedorn will vote no on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes, gentleman from California rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. John Garamendi of California, I inform the House that Mr. Garamendi will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes the gentleman from Indiana rise?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Walorski of Indiana and Mr. Long of Missouri, I inform the House that both Ms. Walorski and Mr. Long will vote no on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes, gentleman from California rise?
As a member designated by Mr. Swalwell, I inform the House that Mr. Swalwell will vote aye on H.R. 5665. As a member designated by Mr. Cardenas, I inform the House that Mr. Cardenas will vote aye on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes the gentleman from Tennessee rise?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the member designated by Mr. Bilirakis of Florida, I inform the House that Mr. Bilirakis will vote nay on H.R. 5665. As the member designated by Mr. Graves of Missouri, I inform the House that Mr. Graves will vote nay on H.R. 5665. As the member designated by Mr. Green of Tennessee, I inform the House that Mr. Green will vote nay on H.R. 5665. And as the member designated by Mr. Loudermilk of Georgia, I inform the House that Mr. Loudermilk will vote nay on H.R. 5665. Thank you.
Thank you. For what reasons does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
As a member designated by Representative Leger Fernandez, I inform the House that Leger Fernandez will vote aye on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentleman from South Dakota rise?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the member designated by Mr. Armstrong of North Dakota, I inform the House that Mr. Armstrong will vote nay on H.R. 5665.
What purposes, gentlewoman from Pennsylvania rise?
As the member designated by Representative Hayes, Representative Newman, and Representative Axney, I inform the House that Representatives Hayes, Newman, and Axney will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes, gentleman from North Carolina rise?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Wagner of Missouri and Mr. Lukemeyer of Missouri, I inform the House that Ms. Wagner and Mr. Lukemeyer of Missouri will vote no on H.Res. 5665.
Yes.
What purposes the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania rise?
As the member designated by Ms. Spear, I inform the House that Ms. Spear will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentleman from Texas rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Kay Granger of the great state of Texas, I inform the House that Ms. Granger will be a nay on H.R. 5665. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purposes, gentleman from Washington State rise?
As a member designated by Representative Del Bene of Washington State, I inform the House that Representative Del Bene will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes, gentleman from Utah rise?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated for Mr. Curtis, Mr. Moore, Mr. Owens from Utah, and Mr. Simpson from Idaho, I inform the House that Mr. Curtis, Mr. Moore, and Mr. Owens and Mr. Simpson will vote nay on H.R. 5665.
What purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Titus of Nevada, I inform the House Ms. Titus will vote aye on H.R. 5665. As the member designated by Mr. Price of North Carolina, I inform the House Mr. Price will vote aye on H.R. 5665. As the member designated by Mr. Khanna of California, I inform the House that Mr. Khanna will vote aye on H.R. 5665. And as the member designated by Ms. Roybal Allard, I inform the House Ms. Roybal Allard will vote aye on H.R. 5665.
What purposes does the gentleman from New York rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Joyce of Ohio, I inform the House that Mr. Joyce will vote nay on H.R. 5665. And Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Jacobs of New York, I inform the House that Mr. Jacobs will vote nay on H.R. 5665.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Washington State rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Strickland of Washington, I inform the House that Ms. Strickland will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. LaHood of Illinois, I inform the House that Mr. LaHood will vote no on HRES 5665.
What purpose does the gentleman from Florida rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Christ, I inform the House that Mr. Christ will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentleman from South Carolina rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mrs. Herrera Butler of Washington State and Mr. Reed of New York, I inform the House that these members will vote no on H.R. 5665.
What purpose does the gentleman from Michigan rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Swazi of New York, I inform the House that Mr. Swazi will vote yes on H.R. 5665. As the member designated by Mr. Peters of California, I inform the House that Mr. Peters will vote yes on H.R. 5665. As the member designated by Mr. Kilmer of Washington, I inform the House that Mr. Kilmer will vote yes on H.R. 5665. And as the member designated by Mr. Butterfield of North Carolina, I inform the House Mr. Butterfield will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Kim of California, I inform the House that Ms. Kim will vote no on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentleman from California rise?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Representative Linda Sanchez, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Representative Linda Sanchez will vote yea on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentleman from Colorado rise?
Thanks, Madam Speaker. As a member designated by Mr. Joe Neguse, Colorado, I inform the House that Mr. Neguse will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Blumenauer from Oregon, Mr. DeSaulnier from California, Ms. Barragan from California, Dr. Lowenthal from California, Ms. Johnson from Texas, Mr. Cohen from Tennessee, Mr. Neal from Massachusetts, and Mr. Moulton from Massachusetts. I inform the House that those 8 members will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
Indiana. For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana rise?
As a member designated by Mr. Cahaly, I inform the House that Mr. Cahaly will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentlewoman from Florida rise?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As the member designated by Mr. Posey and Mr. Jimenez and Ms. Salazar of the state of Florida, I inform the House that the respective members, Posey, Salazar, and Jimenez, will vote nay on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentlewoman from New York rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Chairwoman Nydia Velasquez, I inform the House that Ms. Velasquez will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentleman from Maryland rise?
Madam Speaker, I'm the member designated by Mr. Doggett of Texas, and I inform the House that Mr. Doggett votes aye on H.R. 5665. And as the member designated by Ms. Jayapal of Washington, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Ms. Jayapal votes aye on H.R. 5665. And as the member designated by Ms. Fletcher of Texas, I inform the House that Ms. Fletcher votes aye on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentleman from Illinois rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, I inform the House that Ms. Ocasio-Cortez will vote yes on H.R. 5665.
For what purposes does the gentlewoman from New Hampshire rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by the following members, I inform the House that these members will vote yes on H.R. 5665. Suzanne Bonamici, Julia Brownlee, Catherine Clark, Lois Frankel, Grace Meng, Shelley Pingree, Melanie Stansberry.
For what purposes does the gentlewoman from Florida rise?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Maloney of New York, I inform the House that Ms. Maloney will vote yea on H.R. 5665.
On this vote, the yeas are 219, the nays are 212. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The House will come to order. Members, please remove their conversations to the cloakroom. For what purposes does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 852, I call up Senate Joint Resolution 33 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the joint resolution.
Senate Joint